Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we'll be taking a look at Tecware's Nexus M. This is a micro ATX case for those of you on a moderate budget, don't want to spend an absolute fortune, but want a nice case with fans included and a reasonable amount of bling also included for the money. Now money at the moment, this retails for around about £35 here in the United Kingdom. I will put some affiliated links in the video description so you can check out prices in your local areas. But actually for £35 you do seem to get quite a lot for your money. So let's go through the packaging, go through the specs, we'll take it apart, go have a complete breakdown of the case and then come back with my final thoughts at the end. So starting off on the front, we've got some of the specifications. So on the front I/O we've got two USB 3.0 ports, we've also got HD audio, so that's a mic and headphone jack. Bays included for mounting hard drives and SSDs. We've got two bays available for 3.5-inch drives, two bays for 2.5-inch drives, and we've got four PCI Express expansion slots. Fan wise, we can connect up to three 120mm fans in the front. There are two included already, so that's a really good start. In the rear we've got a 120mm opening and there is a fan included there also, and in the top you can mount a further two 120mm fans. Those sadly are not included. There are actually options of this case available, so if you like the Nexus M and you like the kind of overall look, you can get variations of this included with RGB fans or without fans, that kind of thing. So you can kind of tailor it to your specific budget and your RGB requirements. Looking at support and clearance, so we've got 340mm maximum of the GPU. We've also got 155mm for CPU coolers, so that will pretty much include most things like your Hyper Evo 212s, your Freezer 34s, that kind of thing. They should fit in there with very few problems, although it will be exceptionally close to the glass. Also there is some cable management support, as you pretty much expect these days, and motherboard capacity. We've got the option for micro ATX and ITX boards, not ATX unfortunately. Dimensions of the case, so we've got length 385mm by 185mm by 400mm. So let's take it out of the box and see what it's actually like. So this is the case itself, as you can see. So at the front we've got a kind of brushed metal effect front panel which is fully enclosed. So for those of you out there that like your mesh or a little bit of airflow, then yeah, it is a little bit restricted on this front section, but it's not the end of the world. On the side we do have some ventilation area here which you can see, so it will pull in a reasonable amount of air, but obviously not a full flow mesh front. Moving further around to the side, you can see we've got this tempered glass side panel and it's held on with 4 thumb screws, which is nice to see. The thumb screws themselves you can actually take out. There are some standoffs actually on the case, so the glass won't have a tendency to fall out immediately as soon as you release the final screw. The glass itself can be pretty easily removed, so just pull it off, and there are actually 4 rubber dampeners in the corners to hold the glass in place. There's also on the glass the nice surround as well, so avoiding some finger marks, so if you want to hold the glass before you put it on the case, it's okay. And the side panel itself is pretty much completely clear. There's a very, very small tint to the glass, but essentially I would class it as being pretty much clear. I've had to add a little bit of extra light here so you can actually see what is going on, because that is the trouble with reviewing dark cases. Yeah, you can't really see a great deal that's going on. So looking at the basement section first of all, so we've got a semi-enclosed basement section, pretty decently made. You've got a cutout there, which some people may like, some people may not like. On the top there is actually some ventilation area, so you can actually mount 120mm fans on this bottom section if you wanted to. Personally, I probably wouldn't, to be honest with you. I don't think it makes a great deal of sense. Although if you do decide to populate the front section with 3 fans, then you will have a little bit of extra airflow coming into this basement section. So then you could use the fans to actually pull some of that air to come straight back out and actually into the graphics card path. Taking the back panel off so we can see a little bit better what is actually going on in here. So as you can see in the front, we've got these 2 120mm fans which are pre-included, pre-installed. They do have Molex connectors on and also 3-pin connectors, so you can connect them up to a motherboard if you wanted to, or if you've got a slightly older motherboard with limited fan headers, then you can use Molex, although the fans will be at a constant RPM. There is a little bit of room at the bottom here, so if you did choose to put a radiator in, you possibly could do. 240mm is probably what I would recommend. Anything bigger than that, you are going to struggle to actually get the radiator in, so 360 I would particularly avoid, but 240 is absolutely fine, or 120 on the front if you wanted to. Again, that is totally fine. So in the case itself, you can see there's plenty of pass-through options here. So at the top for your fans or for your additional CPU connector, you can pass those through nice and easily there. You've got this huge cutout here for CPU cooling options, so if you need to put a backplate in, if you're using maybe an Intel system in here, they're nice and easy to get to. Also, you've got pass-through down the bottom here for your USB connectors or your front audio connectors, and there's also pass-throughs at the bottom here as well, so giving you ultimate flexibility. Moving along to this side, so we've got pass-throughs here for putting through your power connectors for your main motherboard power, or maybe the USB front panel connector, that kind of thing. Also as well, there's ones which are kind of angled on the side, which hopefully you can see my fingers going through there. So yeah, plenty of options for cable management, which is a really good thing because on the back it does get a little bit tight. So having those extra available slots to pass cables through on this side is going to be extremely beneficial. Also, options here for mounting SSDs on these panels here. So if you want to put a couple of SSDs, you can mount those straight to there. And in the top section, we've got a removable magnetic filter. So that gives you access to the top section. And also again, like I said, you can put two 120mm fans in there very easily. Because of how close the proximity is to the motherboard, a radiator in this top section would be out of the question. If you've got a motherboard with particularly low profile RAM and no VRM heatsinks, that kind of stuff, then you might be able to squeeze one in, but realistically, if you've got that low end of board and RAM, are you going to want to use a radiator in the top section? I think probably not, but certainly for fans there, for the extra airflow, no problems at all. All the mounting pillars for a micro ATX board are pre-installed actually on the board itself, so that's ready to go pretty much straight out of the box. Obviously, if you want to put an ITX board in there, you can just remove a couple of those pillars. Moving on to the back section, so there's a 120mm fan, as we said, which has got both the Molex and the 3-pin style connector for motherboard headers, so you can use either of those. I think I'll definitely be chopping those off. We will be actually doing a live build in this in a couple of days time, so if you want to see that, make sure you click on the subscribe button and the notification bell, all that kind of stuff, and then you can see our latest videos. Potentially, I could actually do the live build in this before the actual review of the case goes out itself, so yeah, you might have to watch them in reverse, but certainly from the live build you'll find out all of the pros and cons of this particular unit. So taking a look at the top, so again we've got this section here which you can put the filter on. Nice and easy to do and stays in place. Also on the front you've got two USB 3.2 connectors, which is excellent news. Also you've got two jacks there for headphone and microphone. There is a blanking plate there, which for some other cases may have been a USB 2 connector, that kind of thing. And you've got your two indicator lights, so power and hard drive activity. Got your reset switch and also a power switch on the top. Moving around to the back, you can see again, this is the 120mm fan. There is a little bit of vertical adjustment, not a great deal, probably about 10 to 15mm, not a great deal, but certainly there is some adjustment there. All the edges are nicely rounded off, so no cut fingers, it isn't a danger to anybody. And moving down, we've got our PCI Express expansion plates. So the top one is actually removable, so you can take that out and put it back in if need be. The ones beneath that, those three are actually the fold-out ones, which you break off and unfortunately won't go back in after. You've also got the retention bracket on the side there, which, yeah, pretty much standard deal. And at the very bottom, we've got the options for a ATX power supply. So looking at the bottom of the case, we can see it's pretty much a standard affair here. So we've got 4 feet, plastic feet. Unfortunately, they don't have the little foam or rubber pads on the bottom, which I personally would have liked to have seen. It will help with noise coming through the chassis into maybe if you're putting onto a desk, like a hollow desk like these IKEA ones, then they will tend to put a little bit of noise through there. But again, not the end of the world. You could quite easily fashion some rubber feet on there very easily, but would have been nice to have seen it out of the factory. You've also got this removable mesh filter for the power supply section. And yeah, as you can see, yeah, it's not the best thing in the world, but certainly it does achieve what it needs to do, giving you some filtration. And possibly not the easiest of ones to put back on. Would be nice to see some kind of, we'll give up on that. Would have been nice to have seen some plastic tray on there, but again, this is a relatively cost-effective case, so you can't expect too much. Also as well, now you can see the options on the bottom for mounting SSDs or hard disk drives. So you can use the SSD mountings here and here, or you can use the hard drive mountings here and here to put a physical drive in. Not really a great deal going on down here, so let's get back to the inside. Moving around to the back side, so we get a closer look at some of the pass-throughs and also the tie-down points. So tie-down points, we've got one there, 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 and also in this section there's one there and one there. So plenty of options for cable management and for tying down. There is a recessed channel here, as you can probably pretty much make out from the video, and also we'll do some close-ups of that as well. That is going to be your primary area for routing cables. This section on the back is a little bit on the tight side, so I would suggest if you are building in this case, probably a power supply with those nice flat black cables would be optional and certainly recommended. You could get away with an older power supply with those kind of bunched up braided cables, but it's just going to make your life a little bit more difficult when it comes to putting the back panel back on. So let's take a look at some of the wiring. So to start with, we've got a HD audio connector. Again, all the cables are nicely blacked out, which is nice to see. We've got our twin USB 3.0 port, so again, that can go onto a suitable port on your motherboard. Or if you're using a slightly older board, you can actually get adapters for these to convert to USB 2.0 if you wanted to. Next up, we've got our front panel I/O. So on this, you've got your power LED, you've got your power switch, reset switch, and also hard drive LED. So pretty much usual deal there. And these two additional cables are coming from the actual fans themselves. So like I said before, you've got an option of a MOLEX connector. So if you wanted to daisy chain them together, if you're limited on motherboard headers, you can certainly do that, although I generally do dislike using MOLEX connectors. So you can, if you want to, just snip those cables off and just use the 3-pin voltage sensing option so that you get a little bit more control over your fans. Also included with the case is a pretty basic but certainly functional installation manual and guide. Tells you where all the cables go, etc., and how to lay out drives, all that kind of stuff. Also, there is a baggie with some cable ties and also all the mounting screws and mounting hardware that you'll need to put the system together. And that takes us down to the bottom section. So in the basement section, pretty much completely open. There is an option in this bottom to put a 3.5-inch hard drive. You can mount one on the bottom, and also you can invert one on the top and connect it through, which probably isn't optimal, but certainly can be done. I think having the option for one 3.5-inch drive in a case like this is absolutely fine. And if you want to, you can mount one on there, maybe Velcro, or use a sticky pad and put an SSD on top of that. You can mount SSDs, like I said, in these sections here on the front side, also underneath here, on top of that drive, and also because the ventilation on the bottom, you can basically screw them into pretty much anywhere you want to. Because it's quite open, you're not going to have any issues with using non-modular power supplies, so you can stuff all your cabling in there pretty easily. It will obviously detract from airflow if you're choosing to put 3 120mm fans in the front, because you're going to have one fan basically blowing into this area, which may be potentially wasted. But I think really for how it is set up out of the box, the 3 fans that are included, the standard kind of Tecware fans, they've got an RPM of anywhere between 700 and 1300 RPM. So yeah, not the widest range of RPMs, but certainly will get the job done. There is on the front section an option as well. Behind this removable panel, you can put a filter in there, which is actually on the back panel, which currently I'm choosing not to use. I think this is going to make it a little bit too restrictive, but certainly if you're in a dusty area and you want to attach that, you can do. So what I'm going to do now is pull off this front panel to show you where this would normally fit. Taking off the front panel is a relatively straightforward task. Just grab the pull handle on the bottom and basically pull it pretty hard. And now you can see the options here for the 2 fans. Again, if you want to, you can move those around a little bit, or shove them both up and put another one in the bottom. And again, if you want to minimize the dust intake, then you can put this on. I've put the cables through part of there, so that does kind of block it, but you get the general idea. There are other options for taking the cables through, but I've basically put it to my own personal preferences. Like I said, there's a very strong chance that I wouldn't use the air filter anyway, just to allow a little bit more airflow, because really all we've got for airflow is this cutout on the bottom and obviously these ventilation slits on the side. Now, going from previous cases that have used a similar design, such as some of the Fractal cases in the past, and also things like the Colink Observatory, it's not ideal. It doesn't give you the optimum airflow, but it certainly will let airflow. And of course, if you want to, if you're into modding, if you want to give a little bit more, then you could always cut out some of these sections here just to give you a little bit more less restricted airflow. But because the fans are actually relatively far away from this front panel, it isn't going to block them off and choke them off too much. And I think for most modest builds, up to probably around about a Ryzen 5 3600, that kind of area, this is going to be absolutely fine in the stock configuration. Again, if you want to have a little bit more, then if you put 2 more fans in the top, that's going to give you a little bit more negative pressure, and it's going to help these front fans to pull air in from this section. Alternatively, what you can do, if you don't like this setup and you want a little bit of RGB bling on your case, then you can get the other version, which essentially comes with these, which are the Tecware Orbis fans. These are addressable RGB, so you can get an option. You do pay a little bit more, obviously, but you can do that. So then you'd have 3 RGB fans, 2 on the front, 1 on the back, which will brighten things up, yeah, quite a lot. So essentially that is pretty much it. I think for £35 at the moment in the current marketplace, there are other options out there, if I'm completely honest with you. There's other cases we've seen from places like Ions, etc. And there are different alternatives. For me personally, I actually quite like this form factor. It is a very, very similar case to the CIT Flash, as in terms of the actual physical kind of structure itself. Obviously the Flash has got RGB fans and also a solid front panel, albeit acrylic. So there are options there. But I think if you're building a moderate PC, maybe it's for an office, maybe it's for going under the desk where you're not really going to see a great deal, but you just want it to be relatively cool, relatively quiet, and not cost you an absolute fortune, I think the Tecware Nexus M is actually a pretty decent choice. I can't see really any inherent faults with it, but obviously until we do the real build in it, we won't know for sure. But I think, again, because we've already built in the CIT Flash, which is essentially pretty much the same layout, there aren't going to be any real gotchas on here. Again, as long as you use a power supply with flat cables, that is going to really help things, especially with the wiring in the back there. But anyway, let me know what you guys think of it in the comments section below. But in the meantime, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.